All right. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Rob, you made it.
I did.
So glad. All right. So now we've got everybody. Uh, some people on video, some people not on video. So, all right. Well,
Skype's kind of taking up my video.
yeah. So, I'm going to pull up the streaming event here so I can see what we're actually doing. I don't know if we're going to get comments, but all right. So, well, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight myself here real quick and welcome everybody. All right. So, hey everybody. We finally got Facebook Live working, and welcome to the Paradigm Shift pre-launch party. Been looking forward to this like for weeks. For those of you who are just tuning in, it's because I ran this Kickstarter and made these books, and I'm very, very excited about them. But this party is really about thanking everybody who made this possible. And I've invited some special guests tonight to just join me and have a cool conversation. But really, we're just going to have some fun and hopefully have a good conversation. And my friend Matt is going to play music, and I'm going to draw, and we're going to get started with that first. So without further ado, let me put my two more people. All right, arriving. I'm going to move the spotlight over to Matt.
I'm also spotlighting my my Dirk TD originals here on the wall.
That's right. So Matt and I go back a ways. We met through music, and he found out that I did this comic from Chicago, and he's from Chicago, and he checked it out and really liked it. And so when he started his surf band, he asked me to start making posters for him for the electric heaters. And
awesome.
So yeah, there's a couple behind him, and I will continue to make more. So what I'm going to do is put the spotlight on Matt here, and I'm going to share my screen so you guys can watch me draw. Whoops, wrong one. I hit the wrong application, wrong screen. Should be this one. Yes. Can you see? Do you see spaceships in the corner? Oh wait, no. I don't see that on the live stream. That's weird.
We just saw spaceships there. I see spaceships now.
Oh, you do see. Okay, you do see spaceships.
Mm-hmm.
I got distracted by the delay on the.
No, they went away.
The delay is freaky.
Right. The only delay I want right now is on the guitar at best.
Can do.
Yeah.
All right. So what I would like you to do is, if everyone could turn off their video except for Matt and myself, and mute, and we'll start with the musical portion of the evening here. So Matt, take it away.
Here we go. Here we go. Bonsai Pipeline by Henry Mancini originally, and it's been covered at the that was one of my favorite bands is called the Ray Beats, and they did a version of that, which is stolen from somebody else's version, but you know how these things go. I will carry on with a tune called Taco Volcano because that werewolf is looking hungry.
She does like tacos. That is true.
That was I went somewhere with my son once, and I ordered some nachos, and you know how sometimes nachos come piled really high, like maybe a little dangerously high, and he was playing with something, and he said, "Get your taco volcano off my Legos." So. Let's see.
Man, that was great, Matt.
Oh.
Sleepwalk.
I know. What a tune, right?
Yeah. Thematically appropriate, too, considering...
Yeah, thematic, I mean, title-wise, anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Here, I'll, carrying on with one of the other themes, I'll go with a kind of spy thing, like a little, you know, a little gritty, little police drama, police procedural.
Yes.
Let's see.
What was that one?
That was called Smart Alec Kill. For a while, I went through a period where I was naming all my tunes after Raymond Chandler short stories. There's like several albums worth of good titles in there for sure.
I can only imagine the ones that would come out of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I can't remember any of them actually, to be honest, but lots of very, very tough guy titles.
Yeah, but I could see like totally doing like the boilerplate noir story fiction, or what is it? Hard-boiled fiction.
Noir. Yeah, I had this dream at one point of making a band called the Chandlers that would just like all the songs were going to be named after those short stories, and the outfit would be like trench coats and fedoras and that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, maybe it's not too late. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know. I mean, middle-aged guys doing a rock band, I could see that working.
Well, this is where the masks come in.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why do you think surf bands all wear outfits and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those straight jackets. I'm looking at you.
Yeah. Yeah, or are you? Who knows who's under there?
Yes.
Are you supposed to be talking while you're doing this, or am I hogging your spotlight?
No. I'm just talking in between because.
All right. Yeah.
I want the music.
You're saving, right? You're saving as you go?
Oh, of course.
Okay, that scares me.
No, I work like this all the time. Here we are so far. We've got we've got a taco hungry werewolf, Kate. Because she's had a tough night, Yeah, she's hungry. I think I need to let her this now.
Shall I do one more? Or you?
Yeah, why don't you do one more?
Okay, I'll do a Chicago
then
one.
we'll wrap things up. I was looking at the time.
This is called Montrose Beach, which I wrote when I was in Chicago. So.
Oh, awesome.
Speaking of Chicago in the '90s,
right, so yeah, here we are. A finished drawing for your pleasure. All right, well, thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Stop sharing my screen here. And yeah, we had fun doing this on Monday. So everybody should check out Matt's Instagram, the Electric Heaters, and Matt Heaton Music, both on Instagram. And we might do another thing like this again in the future.
You're welcome anytime.
Oh man, it would be so great.
I'm there on Mondays at 5. So anytime you want to stop by, the virtual door is open for you.
Yes, excellent, excellent. All right, well here I'm going to. There we go. I'm back. All right. Well, thank you. Feel free to stick around and join in the chat later.
Yep. I might hop over to the Facebooky.
Okay.
We'll see what I do, but yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. This is so much fun, and I look forward to drawing and doing music at the same time again.
Yeah. And
sometime
congratulations.
Soon. All right. Cool. All right. So. Oh man, it's so great to see everybody. Like I just want to put on my gallery view here to see how many people are here. This is so great. So anyway, so now it's 7:30, and I've invited a number of special guests on tonight because I wanted to talk a little about the journey that I've taken doing comics. But starting with the whole reason we're here was the fact that I did this Kickstarter just about a year ago, like a year ago last week. And that was such a big moment for me. I created Paradigm Shift over 20 years ago, and it had always been a dream to do a graphic novel. I did a series of those, and I kind of had my little run in webcomics. And then I had a turn, and I had to step away from it for a while. And so doing the Kickstarter was sort of bringing myself back into the world of comics again. And thanks to you fine folks and the people out there online who were paying attention on that day, it just blew me away when I did that launch. And the next thing I knew, it was just, on just over a day that it was complete. And I can't tell you how much that changed the way I thought about so many things: the world, the internet, just the kindness of people. And so that's the thing I wanted to celebrate tonight. So, these books would not exist if it hadn't been for that. And the lead up to that was a whole journey. And the short version being that when I started working on coming back to doing Paradigm Shift, what became Volume 2, which was the fourth installment of the story. I started that back, like looking at it in 2015 and going, this is pretty good. I should finish this. And I didn't know how long it would take to do. I ended up having to go revise a lot of it. It took several years to finish. But when I finally got to the point where I'm going to do a Kickstarter for this, but will people show up for it? And that was like this huge cliff that I was, I remember, talking to a friend and saying, if I hit go on this, is anybody going to show up? And because I didn't know how many people would remember that I had been around and I disappeared from the internet for a while. It was a really big moment. So I've brought in a special guest. He's only got a couple minutes left, and I specifically brought him in, Rob Multari. Go ahead and unmute. I'm going to spotlight you so we can
Hello.
talk.
Hi, everyone.
I know you're on a tight deadline here, but you and I launched our Kickstarters almost on the same day. It was definitely the same week.
Yeah, we ran pretty much the whole month together.
Yeah, exactly. And if I remember correctly from your story, it was like the second time you'd done a Kickstarter. The first time hadn't gone so well.
Yeah.
And so could you tell me a little about like what you were feeling when you hit go on that? Oh, by the way, everyone, this is Rob, and he does a comic called Nightwolf. And for you werewolf fans out there, I've been plugging his comic on my feed, and he was generous enough to give me a chance to do one of the covers for the latest issue.
One of the best covers I've seen.
Oh well, I really enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun. But that's why I brought him on, because it was just this interesting coincidence that we launched our Kickstarters like at the same time, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm doing the same thing." What were you feeling when you launched that again?
Yeah, so the first time around, I was very confident, and I still am. I mean, to this day, I'm very confident about my story and my comic. And but for the first time, I kind of was overly confident. I tried going for a $20,000 goal on 3 issues from as a no-name creator. So if I would have maybe gone for a more reasonable for an issue 1, I probably would have done a lot better. But so after publishing the first 2 issues on my own after that first failed Kickstarter, I decided, I think I still have something here. I'm going to give it a try. So I was nervous as heck. I mean, I I tweaked the page that I had. I even did some. There's an online podcast basically about Kickstarters called Comics Launch, and I listened to that. I joined that community to kind of learn what I could have done better. And what I found was that I needed to build an audience, which going to Comic Cons when we were allowed to still. Yeah. Was how I was building my audience. So by that time, when I decided to try it again 3 years later, I was nervous, but I think I still had that little bit of confidence with having built an email list, having the comic out in the world. So I came back for issue 3 and had an unbelievable great response. And the fact that you were out there as well with a werewolf comic and seeing how well you were doing also brought me that sigh of relief, because obviously there's people like us out there who want to see this kind of creation come to life. So yeah, it was definitely a mixture of nerves and just being like, what, I'm too stubborn to quit, let's do this.
Yeah. I know when I was just getting ready to launch, I had been working with a coach, and she's like, you got this. And I spent like 6 months doing research on it. But what flipped the switch for me was when I actually sat down and made that spreadsheet and said, okay, if I'm going to ask for, $5,000, $2,000, how many people do I need at X amount to get there? And when I realized I really only need 100 people to give me $50, I was like, I know 100 people. Like, I'm pretty sure that that's a doable goal, and I was thinking, okay, I'll just launch this thing for a month. I had no concept that it would take off on the first day the way it did, but it did. And I was just, I was over the moon, right? And I'm sure you're feeling the same way with your current launch right now.
That first day, I mean, I almost funded on day one. I mean, it was like the next morning. So it was less than 48 hours. And I was just like, whoa. So I was so very pleased and excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, I was leveraging 20 years worth of readership, but you were leveraging those few years of Comic-Cons, and then this past year where you've been doing Kickstarters. And I've been actually eyeing what you're doing or what I'm going to do next. So
thank you.
I'm looking to do the next Paradigm Shift story as issues and do Kickstarters for each of them.
Okay.
What you've done with Nightwolf. So
yeah.
That's I've been taking inspiration and taking some footnotes from you. I wish we had more time. I know you just got a couple of minutes left, but
we can. I can stay till 8 at the latest. My wife even she was like,
I do want to make sure that I get everybody else in too. But I wanted to bring up one other thing that I noticed from your emails. We share some similar influences and inspirations for our comics. I think we're of an age, and I got first into comics like reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I started drawing. I had my character Kate. She was a role-playing character, and I started drawing a comic with her, and my friends started showing me X-Men and New Mutants, and I became a huge X-Men and New Mutants fan around the time when Jim Lee was drawing X-Men, and when like Liefeld had just taken over the New Mutants. And I got obsessed with Wolfsbane, just like you did.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I was like, "Oh, this could be such a great character," but
I know they could have made her bigger than she was, but I feel like every time they put her up to that pedestal, they kind of went.
I know it was. It's tragic. I went and reread like the whole run of New Mutants, and followed her storyline over this past winter. I got the Marvel Unlimited subscription and just like binge read all these comics, and it was like, it's really too bad. So in some ways, I know my character Kate was almost a response to Wolfsbane, and like, no, I mean she was already her own character. She was a detective. That was already the thing. But like, oh, but what if you had a character who had those powers? What could you do with that?
Right.
What could that be like? So anyway, you've been exploring it. I've been exploring it. I think it's a fun ride. I would love to have you back sometime to do just a one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
you know,
a
you and
live
I
thing
can
like
get
this.
together, you know, if you wanted to sometime within the next few weeks, if we just want to hang out on Facebook Live, or
Yeah, I would love to
then
do
we could
that.
also do one when you launch your next one. You know,
Yeah,
that I'd
that
be
would be
happy
great.
to hop on with you.
That would be awesome. So I'm so glad you made it. I know that we only have a few minutes to talk, but thank you so much, and thanks for showing my work and letting me on your stuff, and I'll continue to do the same for you.
Yeah, and thank you for that gorgeous cover. I mean, that was during that campaign.
That
was one of the most popular. Yeah, that was one of the best variant covers that was on that campaign.
Oh, thank you. I had a lot of fun with it. I'll show people so they can see.
Yeah, somebody asked in the chat about finding my work. So I'm at lonewolfcomics.com. Right now you can get that cover is also available there. But I'm also currently running another Kickstarter for the trade paperback that collects my first 4 issues of Nightwolf. You can get, the short link is lonewolfcomics.com/Nightwolf. Yeah. And then, so that's where you can, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lone Wolf Comics.
Yeah. So you guys should check it out. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Rob. And
thank you for having me.
We'll see you around.
Have a good evening, everyone.
You too. All right. So next up, looking at the time, seeing how we're doing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in real quick to my phone, see if this will work this time. See if it'll let me in. And then I'm going to give you guys a studio tour of where I work. Gotta get to my... Oh, wait, nope, not that. Do it on the phone. Oh, wait, wrong link. Oh,
This is the best part of any Zoom meeting.
Yes, the part where we, I should have turned this on earlier, but since we were having connection issues, I, of course, come on, where is it? I sent it out. Please load. Talk amongst yourselves.
I was wondering if you scheduled this because there was a full moon last night, or if that had anything to do with it. Or...
That is just a lucky coincidence. I mean, it's just a lucky coincidence that we have a full moon and it was Halloween, and so it was just a confluence of things. I have to like text myself this link so I can actually get on. Pardon the delay, the technical difficulties as they were, as they are. I have to email myself all the things. Link. Come on now. Here we go. All right. I have to let myself in now. Admit. Okay. All right. I'm on the phone. Oh, now I'm going to turn on the camera.
And turn off my camera here. Start video. All right, and I have to spotlight myself. How do I do this?
You got this.
You can do it, Dirk. We believe in you. Yeah, I just have to find myself.
Don't we all?
There we go. And turn off. All right. There we go. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, so here's my setup from where I'm standing. I've got these 3 screens. Oh, I can hear myself. And the way I've got it set up, whoa. That way I can face the camera, and I've got this microphone set up. I was telling my friend Riss yesterday that, or I guess that was today, I've got my joy making machines here on the wall, meaning my guitars. I've got this modular workspace, and you can see that I've got a drawing desk and my laptop, which is what I use for writing and reference if I'm drawing. And then I have over here, this is my primary inspirations with my old school manga. And it's really nice to see my books on the shelf next to Kenichi Sonoda, which for you old school manga fans was creator of Gunsmith Cats. And I've got all this furniture, including this big old flat file. So actually, I want to invite my brother to join me if he is interested. Hello.
Hello.
Hey. So I wanted to bring you in on this because you have been witness to the entire journey of the comics making from the very beginning. And you can speak to having a dad who made all this furniture.
Yeah. It's just. I know. I have an exact copy of that desk right here, that drawing desk.
Yeah, this
right
drawing
here.
desk was a
Exact same one.
16th birthday present for me from my father. And I continue to use it to this day.
Yep.
And he actually made like all these little holders on the side. And he made a matching computer desk. Yep. Yeah, that was how he showed his love.
Oh yeah.
But also like this, like the flat file, which is just filled with gobs and gobs of artwork. So here's like all the pages from the original PS books, just sitting here. And here are the this is the watercolors that I use to make the new color pages. And yeah, here is most of this is all part 3 and a good chunk of part 4. Before I went digital with it. And here's another thing that I wanted to have my brother in on was this is the high school file. Yes, so this was from senior year high school.
Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah. How many characters did we used to make?
Hundreds? I don't know. Making characters was half the fun.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you the annex real quick. So this is my writing room, and also it's temporary book storage.
That's also the futon I usually stay on.
Yeah. Also a few more classic anime shout outs here.
Yes.
As a covering up for my storage area. And this is the rest of the library.
Oh yeah.
Which is, eclectic things, but these are very important from my childhood. So Kurt, you can speak to this.
Yes,
We had an inordinate amount of anime
we did.
in our childhood.
We did. We started in. I mean, I was born in Houston. You were born in California, but most of your upbringing was in Houston before we moved to Illinois. And in Houston, they had Harmony Gold, and Harmony Gold was responsible for Robotech. And so we had Robotech on when I was like 7. So we were watching Robotech and Battle of the Planets, and they had
Speed
so
Racer and both
Speed Racer.
versions of Voltron.
both versions of Ultron. Oh yeah, they had everything.
And for me, it was the Voltron spaceships. That was the stuff. Everybody remembers the lions, but it was the spaceships for me.
Were they the 3 crews of 5 people that were basically the same 5 people 3 times?
Yes.
Because they couldn't come up with 15 different characters. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you
Absolutely.
can watch it on YouTube.
Probably. I think it's called Vehicle Force or something like that.
When we moved to St. Louis, I was in 3rd grade and you were just starting high school, and it was gone. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Just,
It all went away, and it wasn't until I discovered role-playing games.
yes.
So I loved Robotech. I loved it so much. I bought all the books. And then my friend brought this to school one day, and I was just blown away with all the artwork and the idea of like playing that.
Making your own version.
Yeah, making our own version. I was just totally obsessed with it. And then he brought this, which was the old Ninja Turtles. And this got me into comics. And I created so many mutant animal characters.
Yes.
And all of them were wolves, as Kurt can attest to.
Yes.
Okay, not all of them, but most of them.
Quite a few.
Yeah. And then eventually we got kind of sick of the just doing mutant animals, and so we moved on to the Heroes Unlimited superhero games. And my friends were totally playing Marvel superheroes at the time, which was
I've got that one in the box over here.
yeah. That one is And then I ended up creating these 2, which you might recognize.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So these are sort of the final versions of them, like right before I started drawing PS. But this was like 7 years along. I carried them with me in the back of my mind. And in high school, I started drawing comics. And I based my first ones on Kate. She was like this. I just love the idea of a detective who was a werewolf, who didn't know she was a werewolf, and therefore she had to investigate what could be her own murders. That was like the premise from day one. Of course, she got sucked into a story which became a superhero thing.
Oh, wow.
And so here I'll
Holy crap.
quick show you. This is not the first issue. This is the 3rd issue. The first issue has been lost to the sands of time, unfortunately. I gave it to a friend and it went away. But this was issue 3 of what was called Vista. And this is the cover. And this is the first time I had ever inked anything. Using these repetograph pens.
Oh my God. Yep.
I still have
I
them.
think they started out white.
And in fact, those repetograph pens are the same pens that inked
Yeah.
this cityscape. Anyway, but just
Oh yeah.
so many pages. Let me skip
Goes down,
ahead.
you can see all the wolves.
Well, all right. Yeah, so here's Eric. Eric Wolf, he was like my mainstay character for the longest time. I suppose if I had a fursona, he would be it. But I played him forever. And then here's Dave. He was just this nuts character. Not mine, a friend of mine's.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, having a drinking contest. But I was going to skip ahead to Kate because
Somewhere in there.
this is like the first appearance. This is the very first appearance of Kate and Mike ever. Well, in existence on the page together. And they were on a date, of course. And she starts changing into a werewolf at the end while they're kissing, and it's very, very young adult. So yeah, that was the end of sophomore year of high school. So yeah, those characters have been with me for a long time, and I could keep going. There is so many more pages of stuff, and perhaps I will post them at some point online if people are interested enough. But
I think my main contribution to any part of your storyline was convincing you that you didn't have to be married to the original versions of those characters.
oh God, you're so right.
That was basically it. That was my contribution.
But it was important because in college I wasn't drawing comics at all, and I got totally into the X-Files and anime, watching so much anime. And we started thinking of our characters as anime characters. And we got around to the idea of like rebooting Kate and Mike as these anime characters who were like have a bit of a Mulder and Scully vibe between the two of them, and to like I started watching like buddy cop films, and I was like, oh, it would be so great to have like the oh wait, did we lose you, Kurt? No.
No, yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. It tried to jump. I need to turn off the mic.
I remember
tried to jump.
One of the best videos that you had from all that was Running Scared. I had never seen that movie before you found it as reference for this. And to this day, we still quote that thing. Like,
oh God, yeah, Running Scared. That was like a huge thing. I'm going to switch over back to
like thematically. If anybody wishes, just go watch Running Scared and then read like the first book of PS, and you'll be like, oh,
yeah, because that was exactly the vibe I was shooting for. Absolutely. I mean, even the captain is
Gregory Hines.
He's basically based on Gregory Hines from that film, only 10, 15 years older. Like, that was it. All right, I'm switching over here.
Oh.
So yeah, and rethinking Kate and Mike as these like fun action hero buddy cop film things was really what jogged me into wanting to do the comic again in later after college. So I'm going to move on to the Chicago years, and I'd like to bring my friend Riss in. And there she is.
Hello.
Wait, where'd she go?
Coming to you live from sunny California.
Yes. Oh, you got bumped to the top here. I'm going to spotlight you. You. Thank you, Kurt. So Riss. Riss and I went to college together, and we were both in the art program at Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois. And I remember at some point bringing out all these comics and showing her at some point, but I wasn't drawing comics at all in college. It was just sort of
figure drawing.
I'd gone to my first comic convention in 1993, and I brought my all these stacks of comics that I had brought, and I was so proud of them. And they'd gotten me an art talent scholarship award to go to college. And I brought them to Comic-Con, and I went to portfolio reviews, and I showed them to people. and I got shot down at one after the other because I was 18. And I showed some promise. I was decent for an 18-year-old, but I had a lot to learn. I had a lot to do. But I came home crushed. I just didn't want to do comics anymore. And I couldn't even bear to look at them. I hardly wanted to read them. I had friends who were still carrying on with X-Men, and I stopped. Eventually, I discovered anime instead. But Riss and I went through the same art program, and we graduated. She graduated a year ahead of me, and like we lost touch. And then after school, I got out and I moved to Chicago for my first jobs, and this was 1997. And I was working as a web designer and taking the train downtown from the suburbs and just seeing these amazing skyscrapers going by. And one day I was out for lunch downtown. We had gone to a restaurant we'd never gone before, walking down the street. And lo and behold, Riss is just walking up the street. And I'm like, Riss, I knew you were in Chicago, but
Ta-da!
here you are.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I had absolutely no reason to be walking down the street in that part of town. I had gone to a client pitch for a photo studio I was working for, just randomly on a day. It was sort of out of the blue. Why don't we just go talk to this textbook company? And otherwise, I would have been down in the South Loop, and our paths never would have crossed. It was a late lunch for you and a random client pitch for me. So
Yeah,
reconnected.
exactly.
Reconnected outside of figure drawing. I have nightmares still about hours and hours and hours and hours of
Oh my
figure
God!
drawing.
Yeah, like 4 years of figure drawing. How many hours a week did we have to draw?
12.
Yes, 12 hours
12
a week.
hours.
And turn them in at the end of the week. Yeah,
Outside of
so
class.
sick of it. Oh my! I need to turn off the mic on my phone.
Okay, that's better. So, Riss, when I was working at Arthur Anderson, I was in their web division. And I don't know if you are familiar with Arthur Anderson, anyone here, but it was an accounting firm that was the accounting firm for Enron that ended up having this giant financial collapse, and it took Arthur Anderson down with it in 2001 around, I don't know if it was post 9/11. I think it was post 9/11. Anyway,
A little bit, I think.
I got out before then, but I was doing web stuff and I was bored out of my mind. And I spent like a year playing video games and not doing any real creative work. And then I started thinking about Kate and Mike again. And I started drawing them again. And let's see, if I share my screen, I can show a couple of things here. Let's see, desktop 2 and all right, can you all see? Actually, I need to skip ahead here.
Skip to the end.
Skip to the end.
Skip a bit, brother.
Here we go. Yeah, so I was taking the train every day, and so I was seeing stuff like this. And I was just like, oh my God, this would be the perfect setting for this story. And so I started writing it down. Originally, I was writing it down as if it were going to be like a video game. But finally, a friend of mine gave me a copy of Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, and it just hit me like a bolt out of the blue. I absolutely need to draw this as a comic again. So I spend a couple of months writing up what becomes an outline, and I say, hey, we started hanging out, Riss and I, at this place called the Green Door Tavern, and it just in downtown Chicago, and we'd meet up, I don't know, a couple times a week, maybe once a week. And
About that, yeah.
So I think I said to you, like, I got something I want to show you.
And the funny thing is, when you said that, we showed up at the Green Door Tavern. We walked in, and the bartender said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, the power's out. We're not serving anything. We can't charge anybody anything." And we were like, okay. So we wound up just sort of wandering out of the Green Door, which actually it's kind of neat. The building has sunk. So the original door, when you walk up to the door is actually kind of canted off to the side. But we just sort of started wandering through River North and wound up walking up kind of the back of Pearson Street and Rush Street. And we wound up behind Loyola University. And unfortunately, it's gone, but you could see Water Tower there. It's behind Water Tower, behind Bistro 110 and all these hoity-toity places, Neiman Marcus. We were on the other side. We were in the back alley to all of that. And we wound up at the Wolf and Kettle Coffee Shop. And take it away, Dirk. That was
so
pivotal.
We watched. We sat down and I handed her this script, and we're both on Spotlight here, so I think I want to make sure that we're both seeing it. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the replay. Maybe I'll just tell my story. So I hand her this outline and say, "What do you think? Hey, could you read this and tell me what you think?" And it was essentially the entire story of what became Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
With all 3 parts, starting off with a murder in the alley, and scene by scene, Kate and Mike getting pulled in to investigate, all the way to the end where they meet back at running away from these mysterious men in black, and Kate transforming in front of Mike's eyes. Like, it was all in that document. It was all there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, details ended up changing, but I mean, the arc of that story it was in that document. And I sit there for half an hour, 40 minutes, just drinking my coffee, like going, I can't tell. Does she like it? Like, it's what? And you finally, you put it down. And what did you say?
You have to do this.
And I knew, like,
yep.
that's the thing. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so from then on, I started penciling it and drawing it. And let me switch back over to my screen here. I want to show the pictures. So I spent the next, I don't know, several months getting it together. I think that was September or October of '98 that we sat down.
About that, because it wasn't too cold for us to feel like wandering around in the city, and October, November would have been too cold.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome! My God, the initial sketches, cool.
Yeah. So here are some of the initial sketches, and let's see. And this was like a screen capture of the document that I gave to her, wrist to look at, and then I started in the pencils, and I started out thumbnailing it. I didn't have like a solid script for that first scene. I just started penciling it as thumbnails and went from there. And over the winter, I finished that first scene and decided I need to put this somewhere. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I know I want to make a graphic novel out of it. But I was working as a web designer. So what did I have to do? I had to make a website. And so that's what I did. And if we had time, I would totally show you the web 1.0 version of dynamanga.net.
Do you want to switch over your screen, switch the other one, and just show the homepage?
Well, I don't want to. We're running low on time, so
okay.
I want to move forward. But
cool.
It looked like this, and I just had a smattering of pages up on it, but I didn't know there was a thing called webcomics. I just knew I wanted to do this comic, and I started working on it, and I made a website to put it on, and I just started posting it there. And I took it to I printed up some ash can editions of it. So they were just black and white, going to Kinko's back when Kinko's still exists, but it was, you know, the local copy shop, and just paying through the nose for the copies I was printing. And I brought 10 copies of this, which was like the first 20 pages, and they weren't even shaded yet, to Wizard World Chicago 99. And then there I met some guys named Andy Crestadina and Barrett Lombardo, who were doing their own online comics. They were doing this thing called Orbit Comics, and we started hanging out. And so the next year we decided to get an artist alley table together. So I printed up this second edition, which was like the first 40 pages of the first book. And I printed up 50 copies, and they ended up costing something like $8 a piece or some ridiculous amount of money. And I was selling them for like $5, and I was losing money right and left. But I sold all 50 copies of it and came away on a high on that weekend. And and we started talking about like, oh, we should do more comic stuff. What else can we do? And that led us to come up with this idea for this site called comics2you.com, which the idea was we'd email comics to you every week. So we'd have 5 comics, and on Mondays you would get 1 comic, and on Tuesdays you get a different comic. And I decided, oh, this is a great idea, but I cannot produce a page of PS every week. There's no way. But I could do something more simple. So I came up with this other strip called Tesseract, which was also based on a bunch of role-playing game characters. And I had a blast with it. And we started looking for other people to sign up. And I'd like to invite Chuck Whelon to come up here, because we found him and Pewfell Porfingles.
Hello.
Hello. I'm trying to stop screen sharing here so I can see you. So we'll talk more again later, Riss. And here's Chuck. I'll put you on spotlight. All right. So Chuck, we found you. How did you find Comics to You? How did we find you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember. I mean, this was still like the early days of the internet, so there wasn't like a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, there was literally only a few comics online, so it was a very small world.
Yeah, I mean, and your work, I remember seeing and thinking, wow, you were like really operating at a very high level of quality compared to, the average webcomic, even today, I would say.
Right. Well, I mean, I was trying to put a graphic novel online, so it was a completely different aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
But I know that we got hooked up through somehow. I don't know if you got in touch with Andy and Barrett, or they got in touch with you. I don't remember, but yeah. I just know that you were a part of that first lineup, and we only ran that site for like maybe a year. I think I only did like 27 strips of.
Yeah, but what you could do is you could send email, like a comic, straight into somebody's inbox.
Yeah, and I don't know if people are starting to do that again or what, but it was kind of brilliant at the time.
Yeah.
But we got on the radar of this guy named Joey Manley. And he was doing a podcast in 2001 called Digital Comics Talk. And he had just had the first episode, and he had interviewed Scott McCloud and Indigo Kelly, who people now know through the convention in Portland.
Yes.
He's one of the runners. What's the name of that show? The one in Portland?
Oh, in Portland?
Yeah.
Oh, I forget.
I'm totally drawing. I've never gotten to go because it's too far away. But anyway, I've heard good things. Anyway, he runs that show.
Yeah. He ran that show. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we got interviewed for the second episode of this podcast because of Comics to You. And I remember sitting in Barrett's living room, like huddled around the phone, passing the phone back and forth to talk to Joey. And then Joey ended up inviting us to the comiccon.org forums. And that's how we met so many awesome people like Shane and Garrity and Gene Yang and Derek Kirk Kim and like
Jason Shiga was in there as
Jason
well.
Shiga. I mean, and then Scott McCloud was there.
Scotland Cad and Shannon Garrity.
Yeah.
From, the area.
And
yeah,
like that was my original posse. That was our original posse of like online comickers. And it was such early days. And after 9/11, everything crashed and suddenly people were like dropping off the radar because they couldn't pay their bandwidth charges because the advertising rates had like dropped through the floor. And
yes, I guess, yes, it was just sort of around like 2000s. Well, yes, I don't remember when 9/11 fits into it. We were going after 9/11.
Yeah, it was after, but I remember that it was around the .com crash, like, you know, and 9/11 didn't help, but
Yes. Joey Manley had got his money. He'd got some money. Like, he'd been part of this company called streamingmedia.com. And I knew some other people that had been part of that company.
yeah,
And like Joey Manley had got in, and they had sold their business like right before the .com bubble burst.
yes.
Like, so they sold that business, and like Joey and a lot of other people got like a big payout. They cashed in. And this was like several months before the .com bubble burst, whenever that was, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then after that, Joey had this money that he's like, oh, I want to put it into like doing comics.
Yeah, and so he was like, let's start a thing. And so we were like kicking around the idea of doing a subscription site instead. And so Joey ended up spearheading this thing called Modern Tales, and you were on it, I was on it, Shannon was on it, Gene Yang serialized American Born Chinese on it.
Yes.
Jason Shiga had stuff on it. Like, there was so many people who came out of it. And then we did the spin-off sites, Girl-O-Matic, which Raina Telgemeier serialized Smile on that.
Okay, yeah, Raina Telgemeier has her own floor at Scholastic now with like...
Yeah, exactly. And it's... We've like this whole generation of now well-known graphic novelists came out of that thing. And like, it was just a completely different world. There was no social media. You just had to put stuff on your site and just hope people would find it. It was just a completely different world. And, you know, oh man, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, I put this hard cutoff at like 8:30 to switch to the Q&A. I could just go on and on, but I want to make sure I get some of the other guests on who I wanted to talk to. But man, like we ended up going in completely different directions. I ended up serializing Paradigm Shift first on Modern Tales and then onto these other sites. And then I decided to make my graphic novels and self-publish. And you ended up doing a fair amount of self-publishing as well, Pewfell. I remember you collected all.
Yeah, oh definitely. I've sort of done I did Kickstarters, but mostly I've done it like sort of like print on demand only. I haven't really pursued like trying to get it into stores. That's more of a marathon effort.
Oh God, it is. I mean, even
self-contained sort of story there that's got like a broad market appeal. So, you know, you should have, you know, definitely.
Yeah, it's
what kind of, like how much you want to be pushing that one thing, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I did the print on demand thing first, and then realized that I was selling enough in bulk that it made sense to do the larger print runs instead of just doing print on demand. And
well, I didn't really realize like how great of a sort of anime it was, really. I mean, it's funny, like a lot of those things on Modern Tales, I'd sort of read it like sporadically and would never really, you know, you couldn't quite get the whole scope of it, but then sort of reading it all through, and I mean, you really sort of nail, like with her, you're sort of kind of going into this sort of territory of furrydom and all this sort of, you know, real like anime stuff. So, I mean, you just really, you know, I don't know that there certainly wasn't anything else much like it at the time you were doing it. And
there really wasn't.
There is, you know, that's like just a very solid, it's a very solid like piece that's going to appeals to people across different, you know, different demographics, definitely.
Well, it's the story I wanted to tell, and you know, it came from places of things that people like, right? So there's the hope that somebody else might like it too.
Yeah.
But oh man, as I said with Rob, would be great to just do a one-on-one with you at some point.
Yes.
Just,
Well, there's an interview we did one time.
we did, but that was like before I knew I was going to come back to doing this, and I remember it was during the dark times, which I hope I have some time to talk about. But
yes, you were sort of coming through like in your recovery there. That was very interesting. Yes. So yes.
Yeah. And and it was before I did the Kickstarter, so I didn't really have any sense of whether or not there were people who were interested in what I did anymore. So now I know that there are, and I know it's a story I want to finish, so I'm going to. But at the time, I wasn't so sure, and I know that came across in that interview.
Well, it's a very high quality work.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I hope we can catch back up on, maybe we'll do something, a Facebook Live or something. You and
yes, we will do. Yes, I'm on Facebook. You can check me out. My website is planetearth.com.
Yes, and my copy of Earth Space is downstairs, but
well, I don't actually have a copy of it myself, so yeah, it's out there. Yeah.
Yes, it's really funny little space strips. They're like one panel fun. I really like them. So anyway, thank you so much.
All right.
I've promised a Q&A, but I also, there's like so many people on here who I want to talk to. So I'm wondering if maybe what I'm going to have to do is reschedule with some of you. But I think before we do the Q&A, we've got about 5, I could stretch it to 10. I'd like to talk a little bit about the period of when I was really going gangbusters, and then when I kind of crashed and burned and went away, because it's been sort of something I haven't talked about a lot online. But before I get to that, I'd like to bring Comfort and Adam on, who are fellow people from the independent comics world, who I met, I believe, at Anime Central.
Yes.
I think we were just tabling next to each other, right?
We
Total
were.
chance, just total coincidence.
Yeah, but I mean, you knew my friends Jane and Paul.
Yes.
Yes.
Who were also in the indie comics scene.
Yes, because they're from Michigan, where we're from.
Exactly. And so Comfort and Adam do a series called The Uniques, and I was like impressed with it from the very beginning. It's such high quality superhero stuff.
Oh gosh.
It's good stuff, and you it's clear that you love your work. But you and we've both gone through this whole self-publishing things. You've been, I don't remember if you did the Uniques online before you did the books, or if you started with the books and now you've moved things online.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneous from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Because I mean, I knew it from the books first, so because I met you at a show.
It was always interesting, because when we would talk to our other print friends, they'd be like, "Why are you bothering with digital? It's never going to be anything." And whenever we were talking to our other like webcomic and digital friends, they're like, "Why would you bother with print? It's dead."
Although now digital is so different that you have to completely rework your, artwork, and the story, the story is the same, but the lettering and everything has to be prepared for some
phone,
sort of a phone.
Yep.
Hence the little finger movement.
Right, which I've only like glanced at Webtoon, and I've talked to some people about Webtoon. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that.
It's a time, but it's actually really fun.
It is really fun.
It is really fun.
I was exactly where you are. I resisted for
Adam resisted a lot. They even came to us being like, "We'll pay, we'll do whole things," and Adam was like, "Yeah, sure, toss the card."
Fair. A lot of people have come up to us over the years and been like, "We'll do the whole thing. It'll be great," and then nothing ever goes.
Right, exactly. So, don't believe anything on the internet, kids, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No. But the point of the story is, I'm really glad that we did it. I got brought over, and I will never hear the end of it. Anytime that I'm ever hesitant about anything again, come over and be like, "Hey, but remember Webtoon though?"
Well, maybe the three of us will have to have a chat about Webtoon at some point, because I'm doing this whole launch, bringing Paradigm Shift back to the world again, and finding different avenues to do it.
Welcome
might be one way to do it.
Indeed.
But you two have seem to have found a way to make the like keeping the magic alive while having to do all the incredible amount of work that it takes to do a comic. I mean, you're like the king and queen of being able to juggle all that. I mean, I'm constantly impressed by the amount of output you have, whereas I'm constantly changing different hats, and one week I'm writing hat, and another week I'm in the drawing hat, and another week I'm doing the publishing. I mean, I'm only one guy, but still, like it is a tremendous amount. So what is it that has kept you going in a way that that you've been able to avoid burnout? Because that was something that
each other.
Each other.
You get burnt out. Like even before we joined Webtoon, I think both of us were having somewhat of a crisis because we're like, oh God, everything's changing again. And if you're in comics or really any business that deals with media, that business will change every 2 to 5 years.
Especially now.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard because those of us, we elder millennials, in our 30s, cresting over 40, we grew up in a time where things were fairly stable. And that was the promise that was made to us. And then when we got out there to do it ourselves, surprise kids, get ready to change.
Right. And so I think we've done 2 to 3 changes through our careers. And then the last one was the most extreme because it really did require the complete reworking of all the comics in order to be on something like Webtoon and to find that new audience. Because even Comixology, it's hard for people to find Comixology. They're not on it as much as they used to be. Comic shops are incredibly hard to sell through. We even stopped working through Diamond. We only go through Amazon at this point.
Right.
So everything took an enormous shift, and that was really difficult. But when I'd have a bad day, Adam would be here. And when Adam would have a bad day, I'd be here. And then it does help to have, we've had interns. We have a lot of friends that we call on. There's a lot of people you'll notice that, help us with little things here and there in the comics, whether it's flats. We're training people right now to do work on the tone, to draw some background, stuff like that, just because we want to do more than just the uniques. We'd like to be able to work on multiple comics at one time. We'd like to be a studio.
Right.
So it just takes a village, and that's the reality.
Of course, absolutely. And I think you're actually onto something important there. This idea that it's not just you, and it's things take a team. And even if it's making the art or working on the writing or working on the promotion and all that having a team is sort of the thing. And
it's really important, and it's also something that happens in normal comics, but they never talk about it. They're always like, oh, this one person's actually doing like 6 books, drawing 6 books a month, and I'm like, yeah, that's horseshit.
That's
right. Well, me looking at my hero manga, thinking that they did all of it themselves.
Exactly.
They're the only name that's on the book, but in reality, they had a whole team of assistants that helped them.
Exactly. Even manga, though, is a little bit more open about that.
It is known. It is
but it wasn't real clear when I was reading manga in the 90s.
But that's Japan. There's an awful lot of unspoken knowns.
Right.
We all know this happens, but nobody talks about it. And in America, we don't even know that it happens.
Right.
So
unless you're really into the business.
I remember being young and finding out about Team Silvestri and finding out that Mark Silvestri only drew like 10% of the stuff that his name was on.
Man, that explains it. That explains it.
You never knew. And you still don't know. And it creates this really unfair bar for young creators who think that I have to be able to do all of that and produce a page a day that looks that good every day. I'll never be able to do it.
I mean,
it's
taken me 20 years and I can finally do it, but only when I'm working on my comic, right? And then there's the weeks or months that go by between where I'm working on the story or I'm working on something else. And, illustration work, or up until just this past fall or this past spring teaching. So it's, it was a juggling act. So
Oh yeah, we've done teaching
And
ourselves
we
a
definitely
lot.
go
Yep.
through phases, the
Yeah,
writing phase,
exactly.
the layout phase, the drawing phase. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So as I said to Chuck, as I said to Rob, we need to get on here and do
Oh, no
a
problem. Yep.
longer discussion, because I think we'd have a lot to talk about. But
Sure.
I'm so glad you got to join me. But yeah, you've been there. You've been in the indie comics trenches.
Yeah.
And
For
you know
years
what the
and
drill
years
is.
and years.
We've seen a lot of
Exactly.
waves.
15 to 20 a year until coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Womp,
We'll make
womp, 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 womp.
Yep. Oh, geez. So,
Well, thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely.
All right.
Adios.
Later, man.
So I just want to finish out. So there was a period which about 2012, and as Comfort Adam was saying, they got used to doing like 20 conventions a year, and from 2010 to 2012, I was doing 15 to 18 shows a year. And that was how I made money. I was selling the old versions of Paradigm Shift at conventions and doing commissions and whatnot. And in 2012, I kind of had an episode, and it started in the spring. And my friend Riss and we decided to do this book called The Artist's Way together, because I was not feeling real excited about my comic, even though I had all this work to do, and I was halfway through this book, and I was just not feeling it. And I remember going to Anime Boston, and the previous year I had been a guest at it, and I had sold all these books, and it had been so exciting, and I had done workshops and panels, and I'd gotten all this attention. And the following year, I was just another guy in Artist Alley, and I was looking at my sales, and it got to the end of the show, and I felt like this crushing weight coming down on me. I didn't know it at the time, but what I was feeling was shame. And it was this sense of I was not enough. I was not doing enough, that, I wasn't making enough art. I wasn't producing the story fast enough. I wasn't selling enough books. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing that. It was just that crushing feeling of I'm not enough. And it kind of sent me into a tailspin. And I took a bit of time off that summer, and came back and switched over to doing monthly updates on Paradigm Shift instead of weekly updates. And I was able to carry that for a little while. And into the summer, I went to this show called Otakon, which was just this enormous anime convention down in Baltimore. And it was always a crazy show, and it was always hard to get in and get everything loaded in. And then you were up till midnight every night selling stuff. It was insane. And on the eve of it, I got this pain in my hand, in my drawing hand. And I was like, I wonder if I pulled something. So I ended up putting on this wristband thing, thinking, I'll just keep it immobilized and not work on it, and it'll go away. It'll be fine. And went off to the show, and we had this crazy weekend, and I assembled photos from it, but I'm not going to deal with that right now. But I came back from the show. I thought I was happy, but I still had this pain in my hand, and I was like, what's going on? So I decided to take a few days off. I took a couple of days off. I watched some TV. I think I watched My Little Pony. And it didn't go away. And a week went by, and it didn't go away. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, oh, and it hurts you if you do this. And she felt around, and she was like, oh, you have a pinched nerve, and it's in your neck. And we're going to have to send you to physical therapy about this. And I was like, And I swear, in that moment, and she was like, you might have potential nerve damage. And that phrase, potential nerve damage, just echoed in my brain. And I got so scared. I think I ended up writing that my career flashed before my eyes, because as Comfort and Avenham were just saying, it takes a lot of work to do comics. Comics is just a really incredibly work intensive medium. And I was suddenly facing the potential of not being able to do it, and not being able to do it at the level I needed was required in order to me to finish what I had started. And I didn't admit it to myself, but I was terrified. And I was terrified that I had injured myself somehow by doing the thing that I loved. And so I decided I'm going to just take a break. I'm going to go do physical therapy. I'll just kind of back off. And the pain did subside. It went away eventually. And I was in physical therapy for 10 weeks or something like that, but I didn't do anything. I didn't get any drawing done. I ended up doing a lot of journaling. I ended up writing a lot. But after I finished up the physical therapy, I only felt so-so, and I was afraid to actually get back into the studio and work. I was literally afraid that I was going to hurt myself. In retrospect, I can start seeing what was really happening is that I was having anxiety attacks every time I walked into the studio. I didn't recognize that at the time, but that's what was happening. And I was getting those attacks in a way that was triggered by me picking up a pencil or picking up a pen to draw. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And I started working on the comic a bit sporadically. I had this list of commissions that I had to do, and I would work on it sporadically, and I was ultimately unable to finish them. And I spent the next year fighting this thing. And I would take time off, and I took up yoga. I started seeing a alternative medicine. I called her my medicine lady. I started looking up other things, but I kept trying to go back to comics. I even went to this amazing workshop called the Illustration Masterclass. Oh, it just blew me away. It was so awesome, but I could barely work while I was there. And it was so scary. And I had chosen doing comics as my project, and I could barely work on it. And that fall of 2013, I had a big scare. Had a medical scare that I thought maybe I had cancer. It turned out to not be. It was fine. But there was about a week there. I was really afraid. And at the same time, I learned that my father had been diagnosed with cancer. And again, at the time, I was basically panicking. And about that time, I had also signed up to draw a completely different story called Stranger, which was a kid's story, a sci-fi thing. It was really fun. I had to drop that. I stopped updating Paradigm Shift. And I was actually too afraid to actually speak to my audience about it, because to me, the identity I'd built up around that with myself was that I was my art, and I was what I produced, and that it was in order to feel like myself, I had to somehow work. I was only worth it if I worked. And so the fall of 2013, I had to face all of that come crashing down. It was like, up until that point, it was like I'd been feeling like I was outrunning this freight train. And that fall, I let that freight train run over me, and it flattened me. And that was around the time I stopped updating, not even looking at I couldn't even look at my website. I couldn't even log in. I couldn't post. I couldn't do anything. And I think about 6 months went by before I even made a post. And the post that I made was a reference to Kiki's Delivery Service. If you've ever seen this wonderful Studio Ghibli Miyazaki film, the main character, Kiki, who's this witch, and she's wonderful. She does all this stuff, and she flies on her broom. About halfway through that movie, she gets scared and she stops being able to fly. She has a bad accident and she stops being able to fly. And I made a reference in my blog that, I was like Kiki. I just couldn't fly at that moment. And I realized that I had to take time and figure out what I needed to do. And I didn't know if comics was even going to be on the table ever again at that point. And so I spent the next several years kind of branching out and exploring different things. I rediscovered music, started playing guitar a lot again. I actually rediscovered I used to play violin when I was younger, and I pulled it out of mothballs and I started playing fiddle music. And I started playing around with learning to paint because of going to the illustration masterclass. I'd been surrounded by the amazing painters, and it was like, I want to learn how to do what they do. And I also started looking at different ways of writing, and I toyed with the idea of writing a novel. And I joined a writers group, and I want to bring Janice Amanoff. And if Marty is here, I'd love Marty to step in too. Let's see, Marty. And what Comfort and Adam were talking about was that it takes a team to do any creative work. And Janice and Marty are members of my writing group. And we formed this group. I don't know, what was it? Was it 2015?
I think so. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think
At
it was
least
2015 because I think I
Had to have
remember
been.
we went to the Society
The
of
Skip Week
Children's Book.
conference in
Yes.
2015. Yes.
And then we decided to form a writers group after meeting up at that conference.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we've been looking at each other's work and giving each other's critiques. And sometimes we've had busy summers and we've not been able to work on stuff, but we helped you, Janice, go through
Thank you.
3 novels.
Yeah.
Which were published, which we I'm really incredibly proud of.
There we go. Yes.
They feel like our babies.
The fistful of novels.
Yes, the Enchanted Forest series, A Witch's Kitchen, A Pixie's Promise, and Elf's Equations, and they're middle grade fantasy, and you should all go check them out because they're really great.
Yeah.
Well,
people actually can't check them out right now. Thank you, 2020. My publisher is out of business. They're no longer available on Amazon, and I don't have time to figure out how to put them up myself. So, give me another 6 months, and then you can check them out.
Well, we'll figure that out. But anyway, they were really a really wonderful thing to work on, and working on. It was interesting. I was exploring working on children's stuff. And in particular, I was working on a YA story called Free Mars Girl, which maybe yet will
Free Mars Girl
one
Do it
day
again.
see the light of day. I could show that off later, but some of my first paintings were inspired by a different story. And they working on other projects and finding people to work with was like a key to me coming back to my creativity and eventually coming back to Paradigm Shift. And finding people who were supportive, creative people like Janice and like Marty, who were like incredibly supportive of what I do.
And we're so glad you did.
Yeah. It's been amazing. The group that we have, and I wish Laura could be on with us too, but we have this fabulous group of people, and the mutual support is so crucial. Being able to share the trials and tribulations of creative work really helps tremendously.
Yeah, and it helps also with, like, what I found with webcomics was the problem was I was always practically posting my first draft, and so I had to edit it while I went. Like each freaking page I had to edit it before I posted it, and that was like half the reason it was so slow, because I was like, is this right? Do I have to redraw this panel? But when I get to work with you guys, I can give you a script and you can tell me, oh, this is great, this is working. And that might have been stuff I was like questioning, and you can say, oh, but this part over here, this isn't working. but here are ways we might be able to fix that.
Yeah.
And it's been a revelation. And so I think actually maybe this would be a good time to show this. But Janice and Marty have been helping me with the script for Paradigm Shift Volume 3. And this is
it's good stuff.
This is the first draft of the first 6 issues of what will be a 10-issue miniseries, which I am hoping to do a Kickstarter for the first issue starting this spring. And so after I finish up this book launch for Volume 1, Volume 2, and the art book, I will be going in and finishing this script and getting started on drawing issue 1. And as I do that, I'm going to be launching a Patreon. So if anyone is interested in following along the progress of it, you'll be able to do that. I don't have that started yet, but that's my plan. And then we'll do a Kickstarter for issue 1. I'm going to be launching a new website. Probably not this week. It probably be next week. It's running behind, but
like
as I do
right now,
I'm going to rerun. I'm going to rerun starting with part 2, with the part 2 of the first storyline. I'm going to put all the part 1 up to begin with, and then I'm going to rerun the other thing until it catches up with the new stuff. So people who are interested in new material, there will be new material coming in probably just a couple of months. I'm thinking the Patreon might launch maybe January. It's probably a safe assumption, but I'll have more info on that. But Janice and Marty have been like instrumental in helping me with getting back to my writing, because if I hadn't gotten confidence in my writing again, I would not have returned to my drawing the comics, because that was one of the things that I was really struggling with, was how do I end this? I knew part 4, which is volume 2. The original script had this horrible cliffhanger. I mean, it's not a wrap everything up ending as it is with the whole story, the whole series, but at least thematically it works. And you guys helped me with that. And I needed that help. So thank you very much. So I'm going to switch over now. I want to give a quick shout out. I don't have time to do a full interview, but I want to give a shout out to my coach, Nicole Rogers, who has played a huge role for me for the last year and a half. I was a part of her Fearless Academy last year, and when I first started, I'm going to unmute you, Nicole, if you don't mind.
I'm muted.
Okay, so last year I had just finished up the manuscript for Paradigm Shift, and I had also just submitted my young adult story, Free Mars Girl, and had just landed a publisher. And I came to you not knowing what to do. I was just a mess, and I wanted to figure out what to do. And working with you in your class was one of the things that helped me do my Kickstarter. And rebuild, like one of my goals was to rebuild an online presence, and it was working with you in your class that helped me do that. And I just wanted to thank you again for all your help with that, and the fact that you used Zen Buddhism as one of the key ingredients behind a lot of your work was very helpful for me. I have a sign on the wall over here, over my drawing desk. I guess I could, I'm not going to switch videos, that it has the Hakusai wave, and underneath it says, "Where are you on the wave?" And this was one of my key lessons that I learned from Nicole, because as I said before, I was riding these waves of anxiety as I was, coming out of having this chronic pain issue. And I tackled it with everything I could. I learned yoga, I took mindfulness, I tried all these other creative avenues, but it wasn't until I learned how to ride that wave that I was able to come back and do this again. And you gave me a lot of tools that helped me do that. So I wanted to thank you for that.
It has been my absolute honor, Dirk, to watch you claim your voice and claim your confidence. And all of this is really a reflection of your work.
Oh, thank you. So if anyone is interested, I've talked you up to a number of my friends. So, but if any of you are interested in some creative, really, really excellent creative coaching, check out Nicole Rogers, because she is really good and very good at what she does. And thank you very much. So I think now we're definitely running late, but I'm going to switch over to the Q&A. So everybody, you can turn on your mics, and I don't know how we're going to moderate this, but I know that I've got some special people who I've invited to be here. I would love to field some ask me anything questions. So I wish this thing had a questions thing, but this is just a regular chat. But I guess if you've got something you want to say, you could put up your hand. I need to show my participants so I can see everybody here. Let's make sure if anybody puts their hands up for an ask me anything. All right, Udo. Oh, I can't hear you.
An extra little switch. I always do that.
Yes.
Well, first of all, this is really awesome. I really enjoy this and hearing you talk about the process and struggles and all of that. The question I have is, how long did it take you to figure out the ending for the story? I presume that the ending wasn't really there at the very beginning when you set out.
Okay. Well, do you mean like the ending that's going to be, or the ending
Yes.
of the? Oh yeah.
No, the ending of the story, the one that's still coming up.
Yes. So I pretty much had an idea of where I wanted to go with that. Back in 2001, or actually 2000, I have what's called a spoiler document that I wrote. Basically, I like a 9-part arc for. However, I've gone and cherry picked from that the stuff that I wanted to do, and I'm still ending about where I wanted to. I'm just going to be taking it's basically stopping before a bunch of other stuff, and I'm just going to cherry pick a few things from that and put them in. Okay. But I knew more or less where it was going to end. And I won't tell you what it is because I don't want to spoil you.
And I don't want to be spoiled.
But really the key thing was not what ending am I going to have, but rather, how am I going to get there? Will I actually be able to produce the pages? Will I actually be able to produce the artwork? Because I didn't want to sign on to do the next storyline and then have it like crash and burn the way I did in the middle of part 4. And part of the reason for that was just setting up ridiculous expectations, but also not having a firm script. That really, I had an outline, but it kept changing on me. And so in the years since, I've learned how to do a proper script, take my outline, write a script, figure out where everything's going, get all the little threads, all the little plot threads that you need, have that all hanging together. Then I can do the artwork. The artwork's, I won't say it's easy, but it's straightforward once I have a script. Because once I know what's already going to happen, then I just need to draw it. Whereas when I was working on the webcomic, that stuff might change. Like between weeks. Like I might change a scene because I wasn't working from a firm script and I was editing as I went. Now I don't do that. Now I'm editing as a whole. But this story has been with me for a very long time. So it's just really inspiring to be able to have a chance to actually produce it now.
Cool. Thank you. Really enjoying the story.
Oh, very well.
And you already
enjoy drawing the next bit of it. It's going to be really good.
I'll be buying the next version, of course.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
It's already
I'm
guaranteed.
Really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Marty.
So your story's been fabulous, and I've known parts of it, but to hear it all put together is very intriguing, and I thank you for sharing. I'm curious about your artwork. You and your brother both drew? I mean, where did this all come from? Your father made furniture. Did he draw? What inspired you to start drawing?
I've always drawn. That's the short version. One of the things that my mother did for us was that she always had art supplies in the pantry for us when we were little. And whenever we were bored, she'd say, just go draw. So that was something we kind of always did. But I remember specifically in elementary school, maybe fourth grade or so, I started copying my favorite cartoons. And I remember drawing Voltron. Oh my God, somewhere there's a sketchbook that's got fourth grade Dirk drawing Voltron in it. And then I got obsessed with Garfield. I started copying Garfield cartoons. And so I was already drawing and I was playing with comics. I remember drawing some comic strip stuff in sixth grade. But it wasn't until I discovered role-playing games that I have to draw all these characters that I'm making and drawing all my friends' characters that we're making. And then that's what led to drawing the comic books and doing actual stories in high school. So yeah, I've always drawn. I don't think there have been times where I didn't draw because I was doing something else, but there was never a point where drawing wasn't something I did. It's something I've done since I was just so small I don't remember. So Kari had a question I saw go by on the chat. She didn't know how to raise her hand, but go ahead and unmute.
I am unmuted now.
Okay.
So my question is a bit more of a technical question. As someone who has been trying to get better at doing comics, I mostly do illustrations personally, and I kind of want to start doing more comic work. And I don't know if is there a better way or option or just technique that you use for kind of plotting out the actual pages themselves and kind of how you want each panel to look? Is that more just something that you do in the writing phase of it? Do you kind of plan it out more like a storyboard, or is it something that you kind of just play with it as you're fleshing it out? Or
well, that's a great question.
Because I've asked this question at a Comic-Con before, and the guy was just like, "I just draw," and I'm like, "Great."
Yeah. It's a very good question. I have an answer for you. I plot out my pages as the whole thing first. So when I'm writing it, I'm kind of thinking about, oh, this might be a big panel, or this might be a series of little tiny panels, but I don't like write that down. I just sort of like, I'm thinking about it while I'm writing. But when I actually get to the page, the first thing I always do is actually determine what the panels are, like the layout is going to be. So I look at my script of pages, the page script, and figure out what are the panels, how many panels, is it going to be 6 panels, is it going to be 8 panels, how many panels is on this page based on what I've written. And I don't strictly say panel 1 through panel 8. I just sort of write it like a movie script and assume that I'll come up with a design. And then I lay those out on my page, and then I literally draw like these little swoopy arrows that go through every single panel that is kind of like where the eye line goes. And this is something I'm going to be doing a workshop in 2 weeks that's all about my comics process. And so I'll do like a live demo of this, but
I will attend that.
yeah. I use those arrows to kind of help me place where my characters are going to be and where my dialogue is going to be, and that like helps me design the page so the eye will flow through it. And sometimes there's a visual, I just know on this page I need this thing because I already have an image in my head for it. Other times I'm not so sure, and I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. But for me, thinking about the composition and where the dialogue is going to be is like actually a hugely important part of my process, to help with how the whole page is going to go. And it used to be that I was kind of doing this just all on paper, and I do one page start to finish, starting with the roughs, maybe do a thumbnail and a sketchbook, then transfer it to the big page, and then draw it and ink it and scan it and color it and all of that before I moved on to the next page. But now what I do is I thumbnail an entire scene all at once. I'll just take an afternoon and do a bunch of pages all at once and just type in the dialogue, and like I'll do it in Clip Studio and just do a bunch of it all at once with just stick figures basically. And then I'll come back later and I can edit it and then do a cleaner version of it.
Now, only because you mentioned Clip Studio and doing text in it, can I just get your feelings on that? Is Clip Studio not the absolute worst thing to edit text in ever?
Oh, it's bad, but I use it to Greek it in. It's good enough for me to it's good enough for me to know how much size, how big it's going to be. So
And then take it to Photoshop afterwards and do the text. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the text engine is not good, but it's fine for basic placement.
True. Yep.
For what I need it for. So yeah, agreed. Although I know people who now do all their text in InDesign, and I'm kind of jealous because even though you don't have as much control, you can edit stuff on the book level, which is really important when you're doing a 200-page book and you don't have to go and open up all those freaking Photoshop files when you need to go change a little piece of text, which my friend Kathy can attest to because she helps me proofread all of these books to great effect.
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Kathy Leamy. I'm a medical cartoonist, and I also have worked as an editor and went through Emerson College's copy editing program. So it was a lot of fun to come in and apply those skills to Dirk's books. Oh, it was very satisfying. It's like, I love playing. I could sit and play Sudoku for hours and hours. So there's just something about the pattern recognition of just going through and just be like, nope, that's missing, space needed, space, wrong dashes, da. Like, it's so satisfying. Oh my God, Dirk, I gave you so many comments, but it was needed. No apologies.
Yeah. No, it was good. But I remember the first time I opened up that file and I was like, oh my God.
You were also super tolerant of, like, this is the first time I'd ever professionally edited a graphic novel, and I know you, and I know you were this is like 20 years of your life you're putting out here on the page, so you wanted to be really good. And I was still kind of finding the line between simple proofreading and actually making story advice.
Right. Well, if you want to do story advice, I got some script for you if you're interested.
Ooh, okay, I might. But
all right, well, we'll talk.
you were super tolerant of just pointing out where I'm like, I don't think the character would say this, blah, 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 blah. So thank you again for kind of putting up with my finding out exactly where the good middle ground was.
Right. Well, it was a worthwhile effort. And thanks to me working in my crit group, I was able to take it.
Yeah, I went to graphic design night school, and I'm so glad for it because I've gotten to a point where it's like, if people give me feedback, I don't take it personally. I know that the story is trying to do a thing, so clearly it's not doing the thing. All right, I gotta take that feedback and go with it. This isn't about me, this is about the story.
Exactly. I've already got some major stuff that I have to go back through on the scripts with, because some of the feedback I've gotten has been that it's wonderful character stuff, but we have no idea what's going on. So I got to go back and fix it. So
Dirk, I'm going to ask a question real quick while I've got the floor. Do you think how do you think you would have reacted to feedback if this were an autobio comic instead of fiction, where you could kind of have a distance from the characters?
Oh man, that's a really hard question because I've never thought about doing autobio.
Never?
No, it's just not my wheelhouse.
Oh my God, I think you should do one about, I mean, I don't know how sensitive it would be for you to do it, but just what the story you've told about hitting a wall and having physical pain and having to come back from it and how that affects your career. I think that would resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah,
and
strangely, I would be more comfortable writing that as prose.
Wow.
But I can't imagine drawing it. Like, that's the weird part. Like, I don't know. But it's something to chew on, though.
Yeah. Oh, so interesting.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yep. And thank you for having me be part of the project.
Oh,
it's a lot of fun.
Been a delight. Thank you so much. All right. Switch back to the gallery. So, anybody else? Oh, Nightwolf, go for it.
Yeah, so me and the girlfriend are writing our own story, heavily inspired by your work, a bit of Kari's work, a friend of ours, Lobo Leo.
Oh, yes.
Just a whole bunch of inspiration. What was the hardest part about building your world to making the comic universe for Kate and the crew?
So the easy part was doing, like, just taking the real world stuff. Like that was sort of like, I'm going to just cheat and use a real place and real places. The hard part has been sort of figuring out the underlying connective tissue of the weirdness. Like, what, I know why Kate became a werewolf. I've got my origin down with that, but it's the people behind that. What is their deal? Where are the things that I'm deviating from reality to make that make sense in a way that is consistent with the feel of the rest of the story? So there was a while there where I was kind of not sure how to take, and explain some of the things behind, because I knew from the get-go I wasn't going to do, ooh, there's a full moon, she's a werewolf. That was never part of the equation, because she was always, the original version of her, she was a superhero who had been in an experiment and got superpowers. That was her origin. Like,
right, rather not go the old cliche route with the full moon.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, again, if you remember me talking with Rob, I was inspired by Wolfsbane, but I had already rolled up the character. I rolled her up as an experiment, and she had animal transformation as her main superpower. And I didn't know that there was this character Wolfsbane, but then I discovered her, and it was like, oh, she's got a hybrid form. Maybe Kate should have a hybrid form too. And then, so like the idea of having a werewolf who wasn't the usual, ooh, there's a moon. Because I think the only like werewolf story that I'd really, I mean, aside from just folklore and the occasional cartoon, I think like the only werewolf movie I grew up watching was Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox. Like, I mean, and that was kind of cheesy. So I didn't really think of the full moon thing as being that interesting at the beginning. So I was more interested in doing this other thing. And to be honest, I was also inspired by Stephen King's Firestarter, which was all about like these people getting psychic powers from an experiment and it going terribly, terribly wrong. And I was like, ooh, I could play around with that. But again, but then I run into the Stephen King problem where he never was really self-consistent really with why things were the way they were until later on. He just sort of wrote from the seat of his pants and then kind of tried to tie it together.
Piece it all together.
Yeah, exactly. And also I didn't want to end up with the X-Files problem. And as I said, it was like really inspired by X-Files of the make it seem like you know what you're doing and then not really know what you're doing.
And that's why I want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, but I mean, like for the first storyline, the first book, the first volume, one of my guiding principles for that one was, here's what actually happened. So I kind of had a firm idea. There was an experiment. I knew that her powers were going to manifest after she got shot. And I knew that there was an organization that had done it, and that it was such a big, long period of time that she wouldn't make the connection, that it was a what sort of thing. But I also realized in retrospect, oh God, like having her discover that with a letter, oh my God, that was really me piecing stuff together at the last minute. Stuff like where I wish I had gone back and like had a script to edit. But be that as it may, I was laying breadcrumbs up to that point. I was just trying to figure out how to do the reveal. Anyway, here's the story of here's the stuff that happened. Here's how I tell the story. You just see little pieces of it, and then you're like seeing the rest of real life happen around it. Like, but that's the essence of a mystery. That's how a mystery is written too, where the author knows everything that's happened, but then they're choosing those moments to where you intersect with the truth. So hopefully by the end, all the pieces fit together. So I'm in kind of a version of that right now. I'm trying to figure out, I've got the agency as a major player and all the characters who are agents. So I mean, it's not a big spoiler to say that you're going to learn a lot more about them in the new story. And you're going to learn a lot more about Bryant. So I'm trying to piece together his backstory. I'm trying to piece together what exactly happened with that experiment. Nobody was expecting what happened. Why is that? Can I earn the title? There's a lot of things that I'm playing with right now as I'm building this new script to make it, a satisfying conclusion to the series. So if I never write anymore again, which, I may or may not, I'm not going to, I don't know. I love the characters. I love the world, but I also have other stories I want to do too. But I want to have a good ending. I want you, when you get to the end of that, just go, wow, that was amazing. Like, that's what I'm shooting for. And I've got an ending written, and now I'm trying to write my way towards that ending. So.
Yeah, and speaking of other projects and stuff, I brought this up to Leo on a different podcast. Would you ever consider doing a collab with him or another creator and making your own little werewolfish universe, so to speak?
I don't know. Like the other stories, like this is my werewolf story. So like the other story that I've done is a hard sci-fi, like cyberpunk story. It's a completely different animal. And it pushes different buttons for me, but there's still buttons that I have. Whereas this story hits all my werewolf buttons. So, but on the other hand, it would be the sort of thing that, depending if I liked a premise, if there was something that I could sink my teeth into, and, pardon the pun, that I could imagine doing something where I've thought a lot about what it would be like to write for other artists. Let's put it that way. Because I really enjoy writing. I mean, I love drawing too, but if I didn't have a story, I wouldn't have anything to draw. That's sort of where I'm at. And I've drawn things for other writers, and I much prefer writing than drawing for other people. But, Leo does good work, so who knows? I won't say no. See. Oh, Kari, is your hand up again?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Go for it.
So just kind of coming off of that last question there, in regards to collaborating with other artists in more of the werewolf community, in regards to the reception of your comic and kind of the following that you've garnered, how much fun has it been dealing with all of the hardcore furries and TF fans out there?
Well, I mean, it's really gratifying to see people like really latch on to the work. Like, that is very cool. And I mean, I did spend a lot of time working at that werewolf design. And, out of all the monsters out there, werewolves are clearly my favorite. I mean, you can keep your vampires, you can
As they
keep
should
your
be, yeah.
zombies. You know, the werewolf, that's the one. That's the one for me. But on the other hand, like, comics are my jam. You know, storytelling's my jam. And werewolves are a super cool monster that I like to draw. And Kate is like my obsession. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm just obsessed with this character. So it's awesome to see other people appreciate something that I've created like that. And that is something that I can't, you know, I wouldn't want to dissuade anybody of, because that's great. But on the other hand, sometimes I worry that I'm not as into it as other people are. And then so somehow that might be off-putting to other people somehow, that sometimes I'm like, you know, oh, that's great. You love my werewolf stuff. And oh, look, I've found this awesome indie comic over here. So sometimes I worry that there might be a bit of a disconnect. But other than that, I got no problems. I think it's great.
That's a very diplomatic answer. I like it.
Oh, John, please. Oh.
That.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? All right. I have two questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first one, several of the folks chasing Kate and Mike seem to have other hybrid properties, and I was wondering, one of them kind of looked like a vampire-ish character.
Right.
So I was wondering if you've incorporated other horror monster types or legends and lore into the PS world science.
Okay, that's a really good question. So the short version is all the agents that are chasing Kate and Mike come from the same experiment. I've already implied that, but you know, there's a definitive answer. So they all have sort of animal abilities. The question about supernatural stuff, this is actually something that I'm toying with in the new storyline about whether to bring in other supernatural elements. But if I do, they're not going to be the ones you expect. I will leave it at that, because I don't want to like get into the surprises. But I will say I've never been a fan of vampires.
Good to know.
So you had a second question?
Yes. How much research versus how much? Okay, we're going to try to speak English again. It's the only language I can speak other than 1,000 versions of Babel. How much research versus real-world knowledge did you draw upon for things like police procedure, or any of the science and sci-fi behind the experiment, or Mike's martial arts?
Oh, that's actually a great question. Thank you for asking that. There's a lot of actual real-world research that I've done. Before I started writing the book, I read a book called How to Solve a Murder, which got into the actual police procedure and like investigative techniques that people use to actually solve a crime, and using forensics. I mean, it was written in the late 90s, but that's when I started writing it. So a lot of the knowledge I was basing it on was that. But I would also, I mean, do mostly internet research, but I'd try to like make sure I had sources that were backed up in a more than one way. But like looking up how long genetic testing takes, for instance, or like I knew that the ridiculous stuff you see on CSI was not actually how it was done. So I have, for instance, in the first book, at the end of the part 1, they're talking about going and getting genetic testing, and it takes until the third part of that story where they actually get to take their samples to the FBI crime lab, and that's just because somebody pulled the strings for them to get a turnaround for evidence like that. And I knew, because the real thing would take weeks to like get it off to the lab and come back, because I'd done some research on that. There's other stuff that I'm just like pulling purely from just like police procedural stuff, and just it sounded good. But on the other hand, like I've fired most of the weapons in the story, I happened to go to the gun range with Riss and her husband once, and they brought us whole arsenal with them, and so I fired a lot of those guns. So I kind of know that a 44 Magnum does go bakoom, like, and it has hell of a kick. But and I'm doing some research on military stuff right now for the new book. A lot of the military stuff I got from in the current, now published books, I got secondhand. Riss used to date somebody in the military, and then knew a lot of people in the military, and so I got a lot of stuff from her secondhand, and a lot of really good dialogue. Oh my God, a lot of really good dialogue actually came from her, because she just had heard things, knew things. So I try to do what I can. My goal for the story has always been to make it plausible. Like, even if it's ultimately there's some level of balonium. Obviously, there are no werewolves in the world, and a science experiment that mucks with a couple of genes is not going to turn you into a werewolf. But if I can make you just believe it for a little while, then I've done my job. So that's one of the reasons the research. Also, research is a wonderful way to procrastinate when I don't know what to do.
It does seem to show. I mean, in the story, that's why I asked the question, because it seemed like you definitely had some direct knowledge of some of the stuff. So it made the story seem and carry belief a little bit further through.
Thank you. Like, yeah, that was always the hope. That was really always the hope that would eventually carry through like that. And I mean, it's really, I would just get obsessed about stuff, and then like the whole field museum thing, for instance, in part 3, I just thought it was so cool that they had the man-eaters of Tsavo like on display in the field museum, and here I'm writing this werewolf story about people being eaten in the back alleys of Chicago. And this was a story about real animals attacking people, and it was the real deal, and they weren't supernatural monsters. They were lions, but they were lions that were not acting like normal lions either. So I had seen the movie The Ghost in the Darkness, but then I went and did the research on the real story behind it. And I don't have it on hand, but I've got a little pamphlet booklet, which was like the journal of the colonel who hunted down those lions that I got at the Field Museum. And, I have a videotape of a documentary on, researching real lions in that area and how occasionally they attack people. And I used that as sort of a way to populate some of the details of the animal attacks.
Cool.
And yeah, it's just, I get obsessed with little chunks of the story, and I want to go down those rabbit holes and explore it, and then see what I can pull back and put into the narrative. So thank you. Those are great questions. Roy has his hands up. Roy, do you want to come on, or should I just read what you've said here? Let's see. Oh, okay. Says, please read. Okay. So Roy says, Kate now knows she's a werewolf. Will we learn about how she plans on telling her family about what's going on, or if there are plans for that? Perhaps learn more about the character. Oh, that's a great question. So I had a scene where she was gonna go to her brother, but I don't know if it's gonna make it in the new script, because already I'm pushing the limits of the amount of pages that I'm going to be realistically able to draw. And I think that might have to be a subject for a short story later on in the future, because I don't think I'm going to be able to fit that into the narrative as it currently stands, because they're fugitives and they're on the run, and doing that in a way. Also, it's hard because this hasn't come up in the story yet, but its background I can tell you. Both her parents are dead. Her mother died in childbirth, and her father died when she was a teenager. and so her brother is her only living relative. I haven't been able to work that into the narrative of the story, but it does play a part of who she is. So that's a part of that. And then, but we are going to learn a lot more about her character, both her and Mike's character. A lot of the stuff I've already written is very, very character heavy, and there's a lot of really fun conversations between those two, and you learn a lot about their pasts. Probably some things you don't want to know about their pasts, but there's going to be a lot of that. And I've got more planned for the scripts I haven't written yet, but where she's going to make an unexpected friend, and there's going to be conversations that happen out of that too. So I'm looking forward to that. So Max had a question. I'm sorry, I'm really behind on the chat here, so I'm really sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. It happens.
Go for it.
I had some questions here, but over the course of the evening, most of them have been answered. So, besides Paradigm Shift, what's some of your favorite stuff to draw?
Oh God, it should be no surprise that I just love drawing technical things.
I mean, I saw the Robotech books and you've been talking about Voltron. I'm like, oh, you grew up the same stuff I did. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see in the background there's a couple paintings. They're actually from Free Mars Girl. Actually, I'll share my screen real quick. I will switch over to my camera here so you can see. Let's see, start video. And I got to put on. I mean, it should be pretty obvious that I just love drawing people too. I mean, figure drawing and all that is kind of high on my list. I mean, let's be honest, I like drawing pretty girls. All right, I'm gonna put the spotlight on this. All right. So this is a painting from this news story, Free Mars Girl. And it was me designing a space battleship. And that was so much fun. I've been having a good time making 3D models of spaceships and then coming up with designs for that. That was just super fun. I love sci-fi stuff. I would love to draw a graphic novel that was sci-fi. This is another piece from Free Mars Girl. This one as well. So I've also enjoyed doing some painting that is totally unlike my comics. I've been having fun drawing these geometric things. And these are paintings. These were drawn during the dark period where I was sort of coming back and learning how to paint and wanting to be creative again. And I painted these after COVID started just to kind of inspire me. Oh, and here's this is hanging over my drawing desk and it's an inspiration.
Nice.
I love Hokusai. His stuff is just amazing. I would love to do some stuff that looks like his at some point. All right.
All right. Cool.
So I don't know if that answers questions.
That's a pretty solid answer. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. If you kept talking, I missed it. Could you repeat?
I was like, that's a pretty solid answer. So thank you.
Oh, Oh, thank you for asking. Yeah, I guess I showed it earlier, but I've got that cityscape of Chicago is hanging over my computer monitor too. I mean, that's sort of stuff that's always just, I just love drawing that stuff. It's so great.
It shows. It definitely comes out.
Oh, thanks. So we got a Facebook question. Thank you. From Steve Flom. How many hours does it take to draw a page of PS? Actually, well, that is a different question now than it was 10 years ago. So it used to be most of the pages that comprise this book. Some of them I could get done in 8 hours. Some took 20. They took an inordinate amount of time. It would take several days to do a page from start to finish. These days, if it's a complex page, I can do it in a day. If it's not a complex page, I can do multiple pages a day. But I have to have thumbnails first. It's the only way I can do it. As you can see, I can whip out a drawing pretty quickly now, but that's just experience. And if you notice, each book got bigger. It's because I got faster, and then I was compelled to draw more pages. So that's because I got, yeah, so it's a lot faster. I can do on average a page a day now, and that is if I have thumbnails, that's pencils and inks, unless it's a super complex page. But yeah, it's what I'll probably, what I end up usually doing is like I'll thumbnail it all, then I'll pencil it all, then I'll ink it all. That's how I did the last half of book 2. It's a good question. So, yeah. So anybody else, or should we start closing this down? Oh, we got some more Facebook questions. I'm sorry, I'm so behind on the Facebook questions. Yes, please. Let's see. Oh, okay. Ian, any plans to do anything with Mecha? Ian, yes. If I get to draw Free Mars Girl, there is Mecha in that. Although it won't be giant Mecha. It's sort of like power armor Mecha. It's kind of a hard sci-fi, not quite the level of The Expanse, but somewhere-ish in that level. And then Ron has a question. Oh, love the Stanley Kubrick question. What's your favorite Kubrick film? 2001, hands down. That movie just stuck with me forever. That's it's just visually unforgettable. Like especially all the effects shots. In fact, you can't see it, or can you? No, I'm streaming using thing, but I've got a shot from 2001 as my desktop for my iMac. So I think that pretty sums that up. Was there any more? Was that it? All right. Well, unless anybody else has a pressing question, I think it would be a good time to start closing down. But thank you so.
Can people buy the book on your website right now?
Oh, right. So, I mean, I kind of convened this thing not as I just wanted to have a time to talk with people. But for those of you who are tuning in, who didn't back the Kickstarter, who are interested in my books, you can. They're actually, even though the official launch is on Wednesday, they are technically available. I just haven't made the big noise about it. If you go to my store on my website, paradigmshiftmanga.com, click on the store tab, it will take you to a web store on Big Cartel, and they are available there. So, but everybody who's in this Zoom, everybody was pretty much a backer. So thank you so much. You guys were awesome.
You are very welcome, sir.
Oh, that's great.
Always a pleasure to help out a fellow artist and comic writer.
I really, really appreciate it. So, yeah, I just hope to keep in touch with all of you, and I'm definitely going to maybe do some more live streams where I can just talk one-on-one with some fellow creators, because it's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, so thank you so much, all of you, for coming. We ran way longer than I thought we were going to, and I think it's just fantastic that you all signed up to come spend this evening with me. So the official launch is going to be on Wednesday. So if you're interested, I will send you a link to a Dropbox full of graphics. And if you would be willing to post on your own social media and say something nice about the book and why you like it, and I would be grateful for you to do that. And other than that, that is all. Thank you so much. I will see you all in the Ethernets.
Yeah, definitely, Dirk. You have a
Good night.
wonderful evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Cheers.
Thank you very much, sir.
Cheers.